year, crowds flock to be chased through the streets by a herd of rampaging bulls. Seeking the adrenaline high that danger can bring is firefighter Andy Mintner.
At home, I had a lot of friends tell me I'm crazy, but it's something I've always wanted to do ever since I was a teenager, and finally put some money together, and here it is. Hopefully it's the first of many trips to Pamplona.
To see what happens to the body under stress, Andy has agreed to be wired to a variety of medical sensors.
Okay, we got a heart rate monitor here. It's gonna go around my torso. It's like it's fluctuating between 104 and 110. That's a little high. That's a little high. I can feel my heart beating in my chest right now. It's a blood pressure cuff. It's gonna go on my left wrist. I'm gonna get a blood pressure reading right now. See how excited I am. About an hour and 15 minutes before the run. Got 159 over 112, so it's a little high already. Finally, I'm going to put a swab in my mouth.
The swab will measure the level of stress hormones in Andy's body. Now wired up, all he has to do is wait.
Ready to go. The possibility of death by a bull it's there, it's real, it's in the back of my mind.
The bulls are released. The challenge is to get as close to a charging bull as possible. Every year, people are trampled or gored, and sometimes killed. Andy started the bull run for the adrenaline high. Now, he's racing for his life. The bulls, also highly charged, get ever more ferocious. They're just inches away. Andy's mouth swab is showing a sharp rise in stress hormones. His adrenal gland is pumping out hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. Within seconds, they flood his body, causing a massive increase in heart rate. From a normal resting rate of 72 beats per minute, Andy's heart rate rockets to an amazing 230. As blood surges to Andy's brain and muscles, he experiences a high of alertness. He can think and move faster than ever before. Andy survives this Pamplona bull run unscathed.
Definitely in fear. You're definitely in fear. You can feel the stomp of the feet and the hooves and everything. Wow. It's incredible.
The stress response probably saved Andy's life. But turn it on hour after hour, day after day, and the effects can be fatal. The demands of modern life leave many of us chronically stressed. Over time, the powerful stress hormones cripple our immune system and put pressure on our hearts. Stress can kill us, slowly, silently, secretly. Jude Meadows knows how devastating it can be. As vice president of a multinational corporation, Jude had a demanding job and a tough schedule.
When I look back, I realised that I actually really had no idea just how stressed out I was, and I think I'd become so used to functioning like that and essentially functioning on my adrenaline that it actually became the norm. I just didn't know any different.
But while Jude felt she was thriving under pressure, her body was silently breaking down. She was finding it hard to sleep and was suffering from dangerously high blood pressure.
My body had just absolutely had enough. I'd had enough warning signals about it, and now was really the time to do something about it.
Stress is like flooring the accelerator at a stoplight, revving the body up for a life or death struggle or a frantic escape. Once it saved us from predators. But today, our predators are thoughts, worries that are real or imagined, the job, the mortgage, the divorce. Predators chase you for 30 seconds. Damaging thoughts can prey on you for years. Jude's brain was permanently on the go, permanently thinking, or more accurately, worrying. She could not switch off.
And the big alarm bell was when I was in a meeting. I suddenly felt completely disorientated, and I actually felt as though I'd lost a few minutes. Didn't know what had happened. Something made me look down at my hand. There was this big swelling at the base of one of my fingers, and it had gone all black and purpley.
Stress pushed Jude's blood pressure through the roof. A blood vessel burst.
I felt really unwell, and so I drove off to my GP. He thought I might have had a mini stroke. And of course that terrified me. But he sent me along to casualty at my local hospital. And I hadn't had a stroke, but I had really high blood pressure, and I was in there for about 5 hours whilst we waited for it to come down. That was, for me, was the start of, you know, this ain't right. I've got to do something.
And what she tried was a radical treatment that transformed her life. Every so often, an event occurs that allows science a rare glimpse into the very real effects stress can have on the human body. During the last Soccer World Cup, one study found that fatal heart attacks among fans increased by 60%. The researchers believed it was a direct result of increased stress levels. The buildup in blood pressure can damage the inner lining of the arteries. Fatty acids accumulate at the damaged site. Over time, they clog the arteries and starve the heart of oxygen. This can lead to a heart attack. Every time people feel vulnerable, the same damaging effects of stress can be seen. On the day of the Northridge quake in California, the coroner recorded 5 times more sudden cardiac deaths than would normally be expected. But stress isn't just bad for the heart. It suppresses the immune system, too. In stressful situations, many of the body's functions are put on hold. Over time, stress hormones slow down the body's manufacture of immune cells and impairs their function. As a result, we become more susceptible to infection and disease. A massive stress response, which simultaneously affected a large group, occurred in New York. It followed the trauma of September 11th, 2001.
The human body's reaction to very serious physical or psychological stress, like what we experienced here in New York on 9/11, includes a whole variety of changes and release of things like the fight or flight hormones. They circulate through the body and affect a whole variety of organs, most notably the brain and the heart. And the long-term consequences of those changes really are not known. We're thinking now that these attacks may be influencing the health of people in Manhattan and in New York City and around the world, perhaps.
But stress doesn't affect all of us in the same way. Science is discovering that our personality could be key in predicting why some people are more susceptible than others to the devastating effects of stress. Jude Meadows, a high-flying businesswoman, has many of the traits of what's known as a Type A personality. Type A personalities are perfectionists, impatient, ambitious, fast talkers who can't switch off. They're also more susceptible to stress. And one of the best places to study them is in the Serengeti in Africa. Incredibly, baboons face many of the same social pressures that we do. For the past 25 years, Robert Sapolsky has been studying stress in baboons.
So you want to understand why some humans get stress-related diseases, others don't? Go look at a baboon out in the Serengeti. They've got 9 hours of free time every day to devote to just generating miserable psychological stress for each other. They're just like us in our Western styles.
By measuring the levels of hormones in male baboons, Sapolsky has shown that stress-related illnesses, such as heart disease, are dependent on personality.
So what counts as a disaster of a baboon when it comes to stress management? I had this guy a few years ago. His name was Nick. He was the epitome of what Type A is about. His worst rival shows up on the field and takes a nap 100 yards away. This is an outrage.
Unsurprisingly, Nick the baboon had incredibly high stress levels. As a result, he suffered from high blood pressure, a depressed immune system, had dangerously high cholesterol levels, and died young.
In contrast, I had this other guy named Joshua, who was one of my all-time favorites, and this guy just was this Zen baboon. What he mostly spent his time doing, as far as I could tell, was walking away from fights that your average male baboon would wind up in the middle of, and instead grooming with females and playing with kids.
Joshua had the lowest levels of stress hormones in the group. His health was good, he bore more children, and he outlived his rivals by years. Personality has a lot to do with how stress affects you. But if you're a Type A personality like Jude, does that mean you're stuck with it forever?
Absolutely not. Lots of studies showing with a lot of work, you can change Type A profiles and you change the physiology as well. It doesn't come easy.
In fact, it requires a discipline that has long been known in the East. Jude is dealing with her stress. Twice a day, she takes 20 minutes out to meditate. Using a method called transcendental meditation, she repeats a word in her head and tries to free her mind of thought.
Sometimes you're completely free of thoughts. Other times you will get thoughts that will come through your head. You just let the thoughts come and go. The stillness and the peace actually comes again. So by the end of your 20 minutes, you just feel good, you feel refreshed.
Within 6 months of meditating, Jude saw a big difference in her blood pressure.
For the first time in ages, it was normal. I mean, you know, well normal, probably more normal than it had ever been.
So what is it about meditation that allows Jude to control her stress response? Dr. Herbert Benson has spent 30 years traveling the globe, studying the world's most accomplished meditators. Using modern technology, Benson is trying to understand how meditation appears to reverse the body's natural stress response.
What we are finding is that for centuries upon centuries, people had discovered that there's something they could do to counteract the harmful effects of stress.
Benson named it the relaxation response. It's the body's innate ability to lower blood pressure, reduce heart rate, and slow breathing.
We are fortunate that we have within us a response opposite to the fight or flight response. That is the relaxation response. And there are scores of techniques.
But in all of them, 2 steps are needed. The first is a repetition, a word, a sound, a movement. The second is freeing your mind of thought by concentrating on that repetition. And everyone can do it. The relaxation response can be triggered by all kinds of activity, from the repetition of a prayer to the primal beat of dancing. Even the rhythm of exercise can reverse the harmful effects of stress. So how does it work? At an MRI facility in Boston, Herbert Benson's colleague, Sarah Lazar, is looking inside the brain for an answer. Her subject is a Tai Chi master, Ramel Ronez. He has over 20 years of meditation experience. Ramel has been fitted with equipment to monitor his body temperature and breathing.
What are we doing now?
We're going to do the meditation scan now. So you're going to lie there quietly for a few minutes, and then you're going to begin the meditation.
As Ramel begins his meditation, the MRI scanner takes a series of snapshots inside his brain. Over the next 10 minutes, Ramel will try to empty his mind of thought.
What I was trying to do is focus on my breath slowly, because the breath is nothingness, is empty, is a vacuum. And by doing that, you try to empty your mind from any worries and thoughts, and hopefully reach a deep level of relaxation.
As Ramel meditates, his breathing slows to 4 breaths a minute, and his body temperature drops. Inside his brain, activity also slows down, but incredibly, the MRI scan reveals that certain areas have become more active. The red spots show activity. As well as controlling our heart and breathing rate, these are the parts of the brain that control alertness, decision-making, and emotion. It suggests that in a state of meditation, the mind is not only more alert, but that we are able to control our emotional response to stressful situations.
If such simple steps, a repetition and the disregard of everyday thoughts, could bring about such profound physiologic changes, what would happen in more advanced people who practice meditation?
In 1981, during a research trip to India, Benson witnessed one of the most astonishing feats of mind over body. It's called Tummo Yoga. In the freezing temperatures of the Tibetan mountains, Buddhist monks have learned to use their minds to increase their body temperature. Within 5 minutes of wrapping themselves in icy wet sheets, they can raise their temperature so much that the sheets start to steam.
You and I would go into uncontrollable shivering if we wrapped ourselves in a wet sheet in 40-degree weather. These people were able to do just the opposite through this mind-body advanced meditative technique of Tummo Yoga.
In less than an hour, the sheets are bone dry.
It shows the profundity of what people can do through this type of mind-body advanced meditative technique.
Jude Meadows is part of a growing band of people using these ancient techniques to deal with the demands of the modern world. For 3 years, she has been meditating daily to promote the relaxation response and reduce her stress levels.
Learning Transcendental Meditation is the most significant thing I've ever done in my life. It's made a huge difference to me on a health basis. I feel different, and I've seen a difference in the way in which I work. You have that much more focus and clarity. You could achieve the same results, but with less effort. I stopped working weekends and evenings and started to get a bit of a life. So for me, it's the best thing I've ever done.
In a world where stress can pursue us like a predator, managing its harmful effects is critical to safeguarding our mental and physical health.